Welcome to part 2 of my CompTIA Security Plus 701 practice exam series. In this video, I'll answer 20 practice exam questions in real time, formatted in a similar way to what you would expect on the real CompTIA exam. Now, it's important to note that these questions aren't from the real exam. They're going to be questions that are structured in a similar way to what you would expect on the exam. And while answering these questions, I'm going to try my best to explain my thought process, as I believe that is a great way to understand these types of questions and pass your Security Plus exam. All right, so enough talking, let's jump right into it. All right, welcome to part 2. And like always, for your convenience, I'll add timestamps in the description so you can skip around to different questions or come back later to finish up, since this will most likely be another long video. But let's go ahead and jump into question 1. Question 1. A user clicks on a link in a suspicious email and enters their login credentials on a website that appears legitimate. What type of social engineering attack has the user fallen victim to? A. Phishing, B. Vishing, C. Watering hole attack, or D. Pretexting? All right, so for this question, you're going to need to understand which one does what and when it's used. But let's go ahead and start with vishing. So vishing is going to be a social engineering attack that uses phone calls to trick victims into revealing sensitive information. So it's going to be using the phone. Then you have a watering hole attack, and that's an attack where legitimate websites that people frequently view, they're exploited. And then you have pretexting, which is creating a story to trick the victim into revealing information. And then finally, you have phishing. And phishing is going to be the use of like deceptive emails or websites designed to steal user information or credentials, as an example. So for this one, the best answer is going to be A, phishing. The user fell victim to phishing because they were tricked by a deceptive website imitating a legitimate one to steal their login credentials. Question 2. A company is designing a new network security architecture to protect sensitive customer data. They plan to implement network segmentation, enforce strong password policies, and deploy firewalls to control network traffic. Which security principle is most aligned with this design decision? A. Defense in depth, B. Least privilege, C. Separation of duties, or D. Risk management? All right, so this is a pretty simple one. So what's the scenario here describing? I mean, it's going to be describing multiple different security controls, such as network segmentation, strong password policies, and also the mention of firewalls. So there are multiple controls. And when you have multiple controls stacked on top of each other to help build out things like redundancy, that's going to be called defense in depth. So for this one, I'm going to go with A, defense in depth. The combination of segmentation, strong passwords, and firewalls exemplifies defense in depth by layering security controls to enhance overall network protection for customer data. Question 3. A company's security team identifies a suspicious email campaign targeting employees. The email contains a malicious attachment. Which of the following security operation procedures should the team implement first? A. Update the antivirus definitions on all company workstations. B. Isolate any infected devices on the network. C. Launch a phishing awareness training campaign for employees. Or D. Perform eradication methods to remediate the infected devices. All right, so this is a good question. It requires you to understand the different phases of incident response, but also identify which phase that you're currently in. So you have to be able to understand what phase you're in. So the phases are going to be preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication, and recovery. And then you have post-incident, which is also known as lessons learned, right? So let's go ahead and look at it together here. So we have to ask ourselves, which phase are we currently in based on the information in the scenario? And I would say that we're currently in detection and analysis. We detected a threat and we've analyzed that there is a malicious attachment. After discovering the threat, what would be next? And that would be containment. So I'm going to go with B, isolate any infected devices on the network. Isolating the threats should be the next step after analyzing the threat. In this case, it would be the devices that have the malicious attachment. Question 4. A company is undergoing a restructuring and wants to ensure security practices remain consistent across all departments. Which element of effective security governance is most important to consider in this scenario? A, implementing strong access control measures for company data. B, conducting regular security awareness training for employees. C, establishing a formal security program with documented policies and procedures. D, investing in the latest security technologies for network protection. All right, I would say this is a bit of a tricky one. I would say the key here, though, is where it says across all departments and also security governance. And out of the possible answers, I would say that only one answer that has to do with security governance and also across all departments would be C, establishing a formal security program with documented policies and procedures. So I'm going to go with C here. A formal security program is key for effective security governance by providing a documented framework with consistent policies and procedures, ensuring security practices remain consistent across departments during a restructuring. Question 5. A company website is running outdated software with known vulnerabilities. An attacker discovers these vulnerabilities and exploits them to inject malicious code onto the website. The malicious code steals customer credit card information from any user who visits the website. What type of mitigation strategy could have best prevented this scenario? A, implementing firewalls to restrict unauthorized access attempts. B, educating employees on social engineering tactics used by attackers. C, patching the website software to address the known vulnerabilities. Or D, segmenting the web server network from the customer database. All right, so I would say this is a simple one. Don't think too hard on this question here. You just got to ask yourself, how did the attacker exploit the website, right? And in the scenario, it actually tells you. And that's by discovering and taking advantage of known vulnerabilities. So the keyword there is known vulnerabilities. So what would have been a great way to mitigate these known vulnerabilities? And that'd be simply by patching the website software to address the known vulnerabilities, right? Mitigation strategies aim to reduce the risk of any attack being successful, and patching the vulnerability used to exploit the website would have significantly reduced the risk. So I'm going to go with C. Patching the website software is the best mitigation strategy because it directly addresses the vulnerabilities that attackers are exploiting, preventing them from injecting malicious code and stealing customer information. Question 6. A company is developing a new cloud-based document storage system for storing confidential employee records. Following security guidelines is a top priority. They are considering different architecture options. Which of the following is most important to consider when choosing the best cloud storage solution for employee records? A, cost effectiveness. B, ease of use for administrators. C, data residency within a specific geographic location. Or D, scalability to accommodate future growth. All right, so kind of a tricky one here due to the wording, I would say. So what do we know? We know the company is looking for a cloud-based solution for confidential information. So let's look at the possible answers here. Cost effectiveness. This doesn't do anything with confidential information within cloud storage. Ease of use for administrators. This doesn't do anything with confidential information. Data residency within a specific geographic location. Now, this allows for the company to, choose a cloud storage provider located in a specific region with data privacy laws that meet their compliance requirements and meet their requirements for confidential information. So this so far is the best answer. And then we have scalability to accommodate future growth. That's always good and all, but that doesn't really address the scenario or the question here about, confidential information storage. I would say the best answer here is going to be C. You're always going to have to follow, local laws when it comes to, storing data. So that's something they definitely have to consider when choosing a solution. So I'm going to go with C. Data residency is the most important consideration because it ensures employee records are stored in a cloud environment subject to specific data privacy regulations, meeting the company's security and compliance requirements. Question 7. A company is implementing a vulnerability management program. Security analysts are prioritizing which vulnerabilities to address first. Which of the following factors would be most important for the analyst to consider when prioritizing vulnerabilities for remediation? A, the ease with which a vulnerability can be exploited. B, the age of the vulnerability disclosure. C, the availability of a patch to fix the vulnerability. Or D, the technical skill level required to exploit the vulnerability. All right, so this is a pretty simple one. If the impact of a vulnerability was an answer, I would go with that one, but it's not. So while all of these play an important role in vulnerability prioritization, the best answer would be A. If a vulnerability is easily exploitable, that significantly increases the risk is what I'm thinking. So going with A. Ease of exploitability is the most important factor for prioritization. Security analysts should focus on addressing vulnerabilities that can be easily exploited by attackers first, even if a patch isn't immediately available, to minimize the risk of a successful attack. Question 8. An expense report web app lets attackers inject malicious scripts into a form field. These scripts steal credit card info from the user's submissions. Which type of vulnerability is most likely being exploited by this attack? A, buffer overflow. B, cross-site scripting. C, cross-site request forgery. Or D, SQL injection. All right, so I like this question. It is a good example of a question that you'll see on the actual exam, so that's why I like this one. This one requires you to know, the different types of attacks in order to answer this correctly. And if you know the different types of attacks and what they do, it's a very easy question. So right away, I'm going to tell you I'm going to go with B, cross-site scripting. But let's kind of go ahead and go through each one here. So you have buffer overflow. Now, that wouldn't necessarily steal data through a web form. So ruled that one out. You have cross-site request forgery. That, that's going to take advantage of the user's existing authenticated session to trick the website into performing unauthorized actions. But that doesn't usually involve scripts. It can, but it doesn't usually. Then you have SQL injection. This you can argue that you can type information into a form to steal credentials based on that database that's leaked using an SQL injection, but that doesn't usually use scripts to do that. So that's why I'm not going with that one. So I'm going to go with B, cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting vulnerability is the most likely culprit. By injecting a malicious script, the attacker exploits the web application's inability to properly handle user input, allowing the script to steal credit card information entered by other users. Question 9. A security analyst discovers a text file on a compromised system containing a list of usernames and passwords. The company was hit by a successful phishing campaign. Which of the following attack types best describes this scenario? A, birthday attack, B, credential harvesting, C, brute force attack, or D, a rainbow table attack. All right, so I'd say this is a kind of a tricky one based on the wording, but let's go ahead and break down what's happening. We know that there has been some sort of incident, and a security analyst found a text file containing a list of usernames and passwords on one of the compromised systems. And we also know the method of exploitation, which was a phishing campaign that the malicious actor set up. So now that we understand the entire picture, we can kind of look at the possible answers to see which one would make the most sense based on the scenario in question. So let's go ahead and rule some out here. It's not going to be A, birthday attack. That's a cryptographic attack. It's not going to be C, brute force attack. That's done by trial and error to try every possible different combination of something until you reach your goal. And it's not going to be D. That's a type of password crack that involves reversing kind of like cryptographic hashes. And that's usually done offline too. So to me, the only one that makes the most sense is going to be credential harvesting. And that's going to be where you initiate a method that gathers usernames and passwords, which is what happened due to the phishing campaign. So I'm going to go with B, credential harvesting, for this one. The scenario describes a credential harvesting attack where the attacker used a phishing email to trick the user into revealing their login information. The file left on the compromised device could have been left there to try usernames and passwords on internal platforms. Question 10. A security analyst is reviewing a company's incident response plan and notices a section that details steps to take after an incident has been contained and eradicated. Which phase of the incident response process is the security analyst reviewing? A, preparation, B, detection, C, recovery, or D, analyze? Okay, this is another question where if you know the incident response phases, it's a very easy one to answer. So that's going to be step 1, preparation, step 2, detection and analysis, step 3, containment, eradication, recovery, and then step 4, lessons learned. Well, I should say phases, not steps, but same idea. So if we're looking to do the next step, the scenario says it's looking for the one after contained and eradicated. So if you know the proper phases, that's going to leave us with recovery as the next option. So going with C, recovery. The security analyst is reviewing the recovery phase of the incident response plan, which details the steps to restore systems and data after an incident. The step after containment and eradication would be recovery. Question 11. A company is experiencing a series of targeted attacks that exploit vulnerabilities in their custom web applications. The attacks are sophisticated and appear to be well-funded. Which of the following is most likely responsible for these attacks? A, hacktivist, B, script kiddie, C, insider threat, or D, nation state? All right, so let's kind of take a look here, and I want to point something out here. So the scenario is saying a series of targeted attacks that exploit custom web applications, which to me, that would mean that the attacks are very advanced because they're custom web applications, right? There's not a lot of known information about that, online. But another thing is that the attacks seem to be well-funded. The only answer here that I would say would be a nation state. They're known for their advanced capabilities and are usually very well funded. Now, if it didn't say well funded, I would lean more towards insider threat, with it being a custom web application. But usually insider threats are not well funded. So I'm going to go with D, nation state. The targeted nature of the attacks, exploiting vulnerabilities in a custom web applications, and the attacker's sophistication and resources point towards a well-funded and organized entity, suggesting a nation state with advanced cyber warfare capabilities. Question 12. A security analyst is tasked with implementing a solution to protect sensitive data stored in a cloud environment. The solution should allow for granular access control and support encryption of data, both at rest and in transit. Which of the following cloud security solutions would best meet these requirements? A. Cloud Access Security Broker. B. Security Information and Event Management. C. Cloud Workload Protection Platform. Or D. Key Management Service. All right, so I would say the key here is pointing out, cloud environment, and also the solution would support encryption of data both at rest and in transit. So right away, I'm going to rule out a SIM and a KMS, as those don't strictly apply to a cloud environment. So B and D are out. Leaning towards A, Cloud Access Security Broker. I mean, that fits in right with the scenario and the question. And that's a tool that it lies in between like users and cloud-based applications, and it can enforce like security policies such as access and encryption. So that directly applies to this question based on the scenario. And then you have C, Cloud Workload Protection Platform, which is a real thing. It's actually not covered in the CompTIA 701 objectives, so I'm ruling that one out. I'm going to go with A. A cloud access security broker is the most comprehensive solution for protecting sensitive data in a cloud environment while supporting other services that offer granular access control and encryption for data at rest and in transit. Question 13. A company is looking to implement a security control that can detect and potentially stop malicious traffic in real time. Which of the following would be the most suitable option? A, a SIM, a B, IPS, C, vulnerability scanner, or D, DLP solution. All right, so which one of these both detects and potentially stops malicious traffic in real time? Out of all of these, I would say that only one of them is designed to do this exact thing, and that's going to be B, IPS, which is Intrusion Prevention System. A SIM normally just aggregates logs and data. Out of the box, it's not there to prevent malicious traffic. So I ruled that one out. Vulnerability scanner is just going to scan known vulnerabilities, but it doesn't prevent any malicious traffic. Ruled that one out. And then a DLP solution is going to be focused on preventing unauthorized exfiltration of data, but it doesn't do anything with malicious traffic. So the only one that makes the most sense here is going to be B, Intrusion Prevention System. So going with B. An IPS is the most suitable option for real-time detection and prevention of malicious traffic. The other options do not provide both detection and prevention. Question 14. A security analyst is tasked with choosing a cryptographic algorithm to secure data at rest on a company's servers. The algorithm must be fast and efficient while providing strong security. Which of the following algorithms would be the most suitable choice? A, RSA, B, SHA-256, C, ECC, or D, AES? All right, so we had to find a method, a cryptographic method that's fast and efficient and also provides very strong security. So that's the requirements for this answer. Another key here, is data at rest. So it needs to, be something that provides strong encryption for data at rest as well. So let's go ahead and go through them. So RSA, that's going to be an asymmetric algorithm, which means it's going to take, a lot longer to encrypt and decrypt. So while it's secure, it's not fast and efficient. So ruling that one out. SHA-256 is a hashing algorithm. It doesn't, provide encryption. So ruling that one out. ECC is very secure, but it's also asymmetrical, so it's not going to be fast and efficient. So ruling that one out. And then lastly, we have AES, and that one is a symmetric encryption algorithm, which is known to be very fast, efficient, and very strong security as well. So going with D. AES is the most suitable algorithm for securing data at rest because it is a symmetric encryption algorithm that is fast and secure. It also has no known practical attacks against it when implemented correctly. Question 15. A company is migrating its infrastructure to a cloud service provider. The company wants to ensure that the CSP has adequate security measures in place to protect its data. Which of the following documents would best outline the security responsibilities of both the company and the CSP? All right, so in the CompTIA exams, you'll need to know the different types of documents, what they're for, and also if there's going to be like any legal binding between them. Because some stuff in the objectives, while it is documentation, actually doesn't have legal binding to it. So you're going to need to know when to use a documentation, for the job or the project that has legal binding and does not have legal binding. Anyway, I would say that the key here is security responsibilities. While some of these possible answers could be an option, I would say that responsibility matrix is the best option. A scenario like this in the real world would need a clear understanding of responsibilities for this project. So I'm going to go with C. The responsibility matrix is the most suitable document for outlining the security responsibilities of both the company and the CSP in a cloud migration scenario. Question 16. A company wants to implement a security control that can detect and alert on unauthorized changes to system configurations and files. Which of the following would be the best suitable option? A. SIM. B. DLP. C. HIDS. Or D. FIM. All right, so for this question, the key is a security control that does both, detects and alerts unauthorized changes to system configurations and their files. Files, I would say here, is also another key word here. A lot of these options here can do usually one or the other, but only one is designed to do both of these requirements out of the box. So let's go ahead and go through them here. For A, SIM, so security information and event management. This is designed to, collect logs from various sources and detect anomalies, but there's a better answer. B, data loss prevention. It's focused on preventing unauthorized data exfiltration. Not necessarily for changes to data, although it can. It's not what out of the box is designed for, but also system configuration too. For C, HIDS, that's going to be host intrusion detection system. That's designed to detect malicious activity on hosts, so ruling that one out. And then you have D, file integrity monitoring, which is what FIM is. And that's designed to monitor and detect unauthorized changes to files, and it also supports system configurations. So that's the best answer. I'm going to go with D. FIM is the most suitable option for detecting unauthorized changes to system configurations and files due to its focus on monitoring and alerting on modifications to these resources. Question 17. A company's security team is investigating a breach where an attacker was able to compromise a user's account despite the company having a strong password policy and MFA in place. The attacker successfully logged in during the user's normal working hours and from their usual IP address. Which of the following attack techniques was likely used to compromise the user's account in this scenario? A. Session hijacking. B. Brute force attack. C. Password spraying. Or D. A replay attack. Okay, that's a good question. Let's go ahead and look at some key things in this scenario here. The scenario states that there's a strong password policy and multi-factor authentication already in place. And another key here is the attacker successfully logged in during the user's normal working hours and from their usual IP address. So, I mean, after looking at the key elements in this scenario, we can look at the possible answers. And I would say that strong password policy and MFA rule out B and C. And then I'm also ruling out D. A replay attack would focus on like capturing and repeating a valid data transmission. I would say the best option is going to be A, session hijacking, and that's going to be where like a malicious actor can hijack like a authenticated cookie, and then they can log in as you. They wouldn't, there would be no control that could tell the difference really. So that's what it sounds like this is explaining. So I'm going to go with A, session hijacking. Session hijacking is the most probable attack technique in this scenario, as it allows an attacker to bypass strong passwords and MFA by taking over an existing authenticated session. Question 18. A company wants to implement a security control that can prevent unauthorized access to its network by verifying the identity of devices attempting to connect. The company wants to reduce the chance of spoofed authentication. Which of the following would be the most suitable option? A. MAC filtering. B. Port security. C. 802.1x. Or D. A VLAN. All right, pretty simple one here. So let's take a look. Which of these options, right, would require appropriate authentication before the device can connect to the network? But another key thing is at a reduced chance of spoofed authentication. So let's go ahead and think about it, right? I'm going to rule out VLAN right away. VLANs don't provide authentication usually for devices, so ruling that out. I'm going to say the best answer here is going to be an 802.1x. And, that's going to require you to authenticate when attempting to join a network. You log in using credentials. It gets sent to an authorization server, like a radius server, before granting your device permission to connect to the network. So that's the best answer. MAC filtering can technically do the same thing as far as authentication for a device. But in this scenario, it actually specifically says that the company wants to reduce the chance of spoofing, and MAC filtering can easily be spoofed now. So I'm going to go with C. 802.1x is the most suitable option for device authentication and network access control, as it provides a robust framework for verifying the identity of devices before granting them network access. Question 19. A security analyst is tasked with implementing a solution to protect sensitive data stored in a database containing sensitive customer information. The solution should replace sensitive data with non-sensitive substitutes to minimize the risk of exposure. Which of the following would be the most effective method to achieve this goal? A. Hashing. B. Tokenization. C. Encryption. Or D. Masking. All right, so I want to point out some wording here. It specifically says a solution should replace sensitive data with non-sensitive substitute. And substitute, I would say, is the key word to getting this question correct. Right away I can tell you it's not encryption or hashing. Neither one of those would replace data with a substitute. And then between tokenization and masking, I'm heavily leaning towards tokenization. They're both methods of obfuscation, but tokenization replaces sensitive data with substitute data, where masking usually replaces with something like an asterisk. So I'm going to go with B, tokenization. Tokenization is the most effective method for protecting sensitive data in this scenario, as it replaces the data with non-sensitive substitutes while retaining the necessary information for business operations. Question 20. A company uses a web application for processing customer financial transactions. The application validates user input but does not sanitize it before processing. An attacker discovers this vulnerability and sends a specially crafted input containing malicious code. Which type of vulnerability is the web application most likely susceptible to in this scenario? A, SQL injection, B, XSS, which is cross-site scripting, C, session hijacking, or D, brute force. All right, yeah, I would say this is a pretty simple one here. And the key here is input sanitization. And a CompTIA tip is that whenever there's a scenario regarding lack of input sanitation or input validation, the answer will most likely be an input type injection attack, such as like SQL injection or something like a buffer overflow. So with that said, B, C, and D aren't methods that are used when it comes to input exploitation. So I'm going to go with A here. The lack of input sanitation in the web application creates an SQL injection vulnerability. Attackers can inject malicious code to manipulate database queries and potentially steal sensitive financial information. All right, and that wraps up part 2 of the series. I will be doing a part 3, so if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe, and then you'll get notified, when I post that. But yeah, let me know when you're planning on taking your exam in the comments below. And until then, happy studying and thanks for watching.